watching Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the top stories from around the world. Let's take a look at the headlines. Massive protests in France against inflation, climate inaction. Greece rescues 92 migrants, blames Turkey. Lula exposes Bolsonaro misgovernance in first debate. Hundreds of thousands of people staged a massive demonstration in the French capital Paris on Sunday, October 16th, against the worsening inflation crisis. The protesters expressed their anger and frustration with the government for not being able to resolve the cost of living crisis and the rapidly rising energy prices. Furthermore, the protesters faulted the government for neglecting the crisis of climate change. According to organizers, more than 140,000 people marched in the streets of Paris. The demonstrations were called by the left-wing French opposition and were led by the France Unbowed Party. Several other leftist and socialist parties participated in the demonstrations. The New Popular Ecological and Social Union was one of the organizers of the demonstrations. Reports noted that the demonstrations received the support of numerous trade unions and associations in the country. Notably, the demonstrations were attended by the leftist author and winner of the 2022 Nobel Prize for Literature, Annie Ernaux, who accused President Emmanuel Macron of plunging France into chaos. The protesters called on the government to take emergency action to control the rising prices, such as putting caps on the price of energy, essential items, and rent. They demanded that the government raise taxes on corporations that have made massive profits as a result of the high prices of fuel, food, and other essential commodities. Additionally, the protesters demanded that the government announce a massive investment to address the climate crisis. Reports noted that demonstrations will be followed on Tuesday by a strike by transport workers. France is already witnessing weeks-long strikes by fuel depot workers, which has caused acute fuel shortages across the country. The fuel workers' strike has resulted in energy production to decline by more than 60%, with petrol pumps around the country reporting shortages and long queues to fill gas. Workers have been demanding a wage hike for months, but the management and the energy companies have so far not fulfilled the workers' demands. The government recently stepped in on the side of the companies and ordered some workers to go back to work using its emergency powers. Moving on to our next story, Greek border guards on Friday, October 15, rescued 92 migrants from its borders with Turkey close to the Evros River. Some of the migrants had injuries and many had lost clothes and their possessions. Greek authorities provided the migrants with clothes, food, water, and medical attention. According to authorities, it is not yet known as to why or how the migrants ended up injured and without their clothes and belongings. Investigations into the matter were launched jointly by the Greek police and the European Union's border agency Frontex. They found evidence that the migrants crossed into Greek territory from Turkey on rubber dinghies. The migrants additionally told the investigating officers that they were forced by Turkish authorities to board 3 vehicles that took them to the border. They were reportedly forced to strip naked before getting on the rubber boats. Following the migrants' rescue, a war of words erupted between Greece and Turkey. Greek migrations minister called the Turkish treatment of the migrants as a disgrace to civilization and that Turkey's behavior has exceeded all limits. Greece called on Turkey to investigate the matter and protect its borders with the EU. Turkey responded to the Greek allegation as groundless and unfounded and said that the Greek account of the incident was false content to put Turkey under suspicion. The United Nations condemned the incident for its cruel and degrading treatment towards the migrants and said it was deeply distressed by what transpired. It called for a full investigation into the incident. And finally, in Brazil, popular leftist leader and ex-president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and the far-right incumbent Jair Bolsonaro took part in a one-on-one debate on Sunday, October 16. The debate was staged just weeks before the two-week face-off against each other in the second round of the presidential elections. The two remaining contenders for the post of the presidency debated topics such as the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, infrastructure, education, and security in the country. The debate reportedly got heated at times with both candidates throwing barbs and insults at each other. Lula termed Bolsonaro a little dictator and the king of fake news, while Bolsonaro accused him of corruption even though Lula has since been acquitted by the Supreme Court, overturning his previous conviction. The two contenders will know their fate on October 30 when the second round vote for election the next president is held. Latest reports show that Lula leads Bolsonaro in the pre-election polls by 48.4% to 43.2%. Lula criticized the way the Bolsonaro government handled the coronavirus pandemic and lamented the fact that close to 700,000 people lost their lives due to the government's mishandling and disregarding of the seriousness of the deadly virus. He noted that more than half of those people who would have been still been alive had the government acted appropriately and according to the medical guidelines and advice. Lula further questioned what Bolsonaro had done in terms of the education sector, the economy, and for increasing employment in the country during his term. He noted that during his and his party's reign in power, the country saw the creation of 22 million jobs, an increase in the minimum wage, and founding of 18 universities and numerous technical schools to enhance the education and skills of the Brazilian population. He slammed Bolsonaro for only managing to inaugurate one education institution during the whole of his term, which itself was launched by the previous Dilma Rousseff government of Lula's Workers' Party. Lula further recounted how the socially inclusive and equitable economic policies during his presidency lifted more than 36 million people out of poverty. He noted, in contrast, Bolsonaro has reigned over a period of neoliberal privatization and unchecked capitalism, which has brought economic hardship and suffering to millions. And that's all for today, folks. For more such stories, visit our website, peoplesdispatch.org, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.